Well, so much to talk about it. Now that we know Tokyo is going to host the 2020 games, what about all the challenges? How do they overcome all this? We're now joined by Eric Farnsworth. He's from the Council of the Americas. Eric, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a great time for Tokyo today.
Right.
How do they move forward and realize, okay, we have to clear up this mess we have in the northern part of the country? That has to be taken care of. Secondly, we always hear nations say, this is going to mean so many billions to us in revenue, and it doesn't ever come out that way.
Well, today is the party. The hangover comes tomorrow when they realize what they actually have to do, and it's huge. Hosting the games today is an immense undertaking, multiple billions of dollars, and that's the first thing that they're going to have to do. They're going to have to raise the money. Financing the games is huge, and frankly, oftentimes you don't get publics who want to spend public money to support the games, so that's a bridge that they're going to have to cross in some way. But also, the games have changed fundamentally today than they used to be. There's a huge security component that really didn't exist when the games first started, and the Tokyo is not immune to security challenges. We saw the subway attack some time ago.
Sarin gas attack.
Absolutely, and we saw the Boston Marathon, we saw the bombing in Atlanta in '96. Right. So these are real issues, not to even talk about the Palestinian issue in the Munich Games in 1972. They're going to really have to focus on that as well.
The Japanese nation, it seems like if given a task, they go right to work, and I don't think people anticipate it's going to be a problem getting the games up and running. But how do you balance this in an economy when you're looking 7 years down the road? What's the nation going to need? What is it not going to need?
I think that's exactly the question. In fact, the good news is Tokyo's done this before. They did it in 1964. Japan itself has hosted 2 other winter games in Sapporo and also in Nagano. So Japan can do this. You're right. They see a mission, they can go at it. 7 years seems like a long way away. It's really not a long way. And what's going to happen is we've seen in other countries, frankly, that have tried to host big events with economic challenges. You got to convince the people that the cost is actually not going to be as high as the benefit, and that's oftentimes where you have problems.
Let's look at what's going on in Brazil. We've seen all the protests down there ahead of the 2016 games, ahead of the World Cup. People are very frustrated. They want better basic services. How can you guarantee, or what can countries tell people that, look, this isn't going to happen to us? Because it's got to be a big concern. Yeah,
it is a big concern. I've thought a lot about this. Brazil, Japan are 2 different countries, 2 different societies, no question about it. But the financing challenges of the World Cup and the Olympics and the Confederations Cup that just happened this summer are huge concerns and directly led and have led to the protests that we've seen in Brazil that are ongoing even today, this weekend. Japan is not quite in the same place. Japan's a more developed economy. But at the same time, Japan's economy has been really troubled over the last decade. And so you're going to have to find a way to convince the Japanese people that it's worth spending the money, or alternatively that in fact this can be a boost to the economy, a real infusion of money that I think can boost the economy overall.
Istanbul. Yeah. What do you tell the leaders of Turkey today? They put on such a good effort. This is the 5th time, and really, as Daniel Schweimer said, it could have united Asia and Europe. So many positives for holding games there.
So many positives, and it's hard to get inside the collective heads of the IOC in terms of why they make their decisions. You have to think that what's happening right next door in terms of Syria was a big weight. It really has nothing to do with Istanbul per se, but is clearly affecting the overall impression. And I think broader security implications are something that very clearly went to Tokyo's favor, because the Tokyo emphasis was on safe hands. We've done this before. We're a part of the world, frankly, where we're not going to be threatened by global unrest or something like this.
And our athletes are clean.
And our athletes are clean in terms of the doping issue. That's exactly right. So if you're emphasizing safe hands, Japan's actually a pretty good place, but I think that really worked against the Istanbul bid.
Okay, I want to look at the legacy that the games leave, because so many cities that hosted these games, they have white elephants.
Yeah.
How does a city like Tokyo, a nation like Japan, build these games that are going to get bigger and bigger, thousands of athletes nowadays, and not leave something in its wake that says this is going to drag the country down?
The games always overrun their budget. Always. So you always have to anticipate that they will. The question is, can you manage the cost side and the financing side so that the people of the city and the people of the country aren't left with, as you say, white elephants or huge debt loads that they have to service? In fact, when Montreal hosted the games in 1976, they only finished paying off their debts actually only in 2006. It took them 30 years to pay off the debts that they were left with from 1976. This is something that the organizers really have to keep control of. They have to keep control of cost costs. Now, having said that, I think you also have to assume, frankly, this is an expensive undertaking.
Sure.
You have to assume that the benefit, if you want to say in terms of social benefit and history of putting your city as a global city in terms of history, is going to outweigh any debt load that might be overhanging. But it's a tough cost-benefit analysis.
Eric Farnsworth, we have to let it go there. I wanted to ask you about Atlanta basically turning it into a flea market and the negative reaction, but that's another time. We'll come back to that.
Look forward to it.
Thanks very much for joining us.